All right, so let's talk about tactics and strategies in the NFT space. So, the one question that everybody wants to know the answer to is, how do I make money in NFTs? You've maybe seen TikToks or YouTube videos of people talking about how much money they're making, and you want to do the same. But if there was an easy answer to this question, everyone would be doing it, right? So any obvious profit opportunities are quickly taken, usually by bots. So with that being said, if you are really exclusively focused on this, there are a few particular things that you could at least try, and we'll talk through of each of them. So one, being on the presale list for a hype project. Two, buying undervalued items and projects. Three, joining project teams and building. And four, just being patient and taking your time. So before we dive too deep, let's talk about what a mint is. So an NFT mint is the equivalent of like a drop or a launch of the project. And during the mint is typically when a project has the most attention. So some mints have no attention, but others may have hundreds of thousands of people wanting to mint one of the NFTs. So when the mint is happening, for example, say the collection has 10,000 items. During the mint, all 10,000 of those items are claimed by wallets, and that transaction is recorded on the blockchain, showing who now owns it. Once the minting is completed and all 10,000 items are, claimed or minted by each wallet, then they can only be traded for on a secondary marketplace like OpenSea. So what happens here, as you can imagine, if there are 10,000 items and 100,000 people who want them, what happens is called a gas war. And since gas is a market, you can increase the amount of gas that you pay in order to get your transaction approved first and get it recorded on the blockchain. So if you want to be at the front of the line, you can pay more to make that happen. And this can get very costly when people really want an NFT, and people might end up spending multiple ETH just in gas to mint an NFT from a hype collection. So let's look at an example of this. The Doodles public mint was a good example of a gas war. So when these minted, the mint price was 0.123 ETH. And as you see from this transaction here, this person paid a total of 4.875 ETH to mint 5 doodles. So that's an average price of 0.975 per doodle. Now this worked out really well for this person because the doodles floor is like well above 10 ETH at this point. But as you can see, the mint price is way lower than what they actually paid. They paid 4.26 Ether just in gas to make sure their transaction was accepted. They cranked up the GUI to 7,000, and that's about 100 times higher than what you typically expect to pay in a non-competitive situation. So minting an NFT should really only cost like 0.02 in gas, sometimes even less. But if the floor is 0.5, people are willing to pay a lot in gas because there's profit to be made right there. So as you think about it, this system kind of favors whales or people with a lot of ETH to spend, because not everybody can afford to spend, 0.4 in gas just to mint an NFT. So this kind of gave rise to the idea of presale lists and made those more popular. So a presale list basically allows your wallet to mint an NFT early, before the public sale in a potential gas war. And why would a project do this? Well, one, they want to reward early supporters by helping them avoid a gas war. Two, they want to build hype by giving out presale spots and sometimes having people complete tasks and do things in order to earn a presale spot. It also reduces bot activity within the mint. And it can improve your holder distribution, because if you give out 5,000 presale spots, you kind of know that at least 5,000 different people will have the NFTs. Whereas if it's just a public mint and a gas war, some individual wallets might mint, dozens of the NFT. So it's not as well distributed. So one example of this is Kaiju Kings. And Kaiju Kings had a fully pre-sale mint. There was no public mint time. And the mint price was around 0.06666. And immediately the floor was around 2 to 3 ETH. So if you were able to get on that pre-sale list, that was a really great opportunity. On the other hand, being on a presale list for a project that's not very hype, just be careful, because there's no downside to being on a presale list, but just don't feel obligated to mint something just because you're on the presale list. If a project is not highly desirable, being on the presale list doesn't really mean that much, because it's probably not going to sell out. So you could just mint it during the public mint anyways. One example of this would be Doji Crew. This is actually kind of an interesting project, but it started minting. It's like a 10,000 item collection. It started minting in the summer of 21, and it's still only about half minted. So being on the presale list for that wouldn't really have mattered, because you could just mint it right now. So it wasn't competitive or hyped up. Projects will also what's called like engagement farming with presale spots. So since presale spots can be so profitable for people really want them. So in order to do this, projects will, have people retweet a post on Twitter, tag their friends, invite a certain number of people to join the Discord, or make them chat in the Discord to like level up. Or also to have them create media like memes, fan art, videos, and things like that. So on one hand, you're kind of doing free work for the project, but on the other hand, getting a presale spot could be really worthwhile. It could be worth hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars. So it could be worth it. So it's not necessarily good or bad. It just kind of is the current situation, and you have to recognize it for what it is. Lastly, ways to find presale opportunities. Be on Twitter, join Discords early on, authentically engage with communities, and like just build connections with people, talk to people. And then look for ways to like add value to projects with different like skills and passions that you have, right? So the more desirable and hype a project is, the harder it's going to be to get on that presale list. So you want to find it before it gets too big, when it's still a little bit quieter in the server and easier to get the attention of the team. But again, there's no specific best way to do this, because again, if everybody wants to do it, if everybody knew how to do this, then it wouldn't be so valuable. So there's no silver bullet here, but just being engaged in the space, talking to people, building relationships will be helpful.